I served on the board of the AEW for 6 years. AEW is where I learned how to turn. I turned for 11 years. In '89, I saw a note that the wood turners were getting together up in Seattle. And I went up there, and that was the 3rd annual AEW symposium, and there was 287 people there. And I've been going ever since. And 2 of the things you see me do tonight, I learned in Seattle in '89. And AEW, the American Association of Wood Turners, is dedicated to the education of wood turning and the promotion of the art field. And that's one reason I've been down here to the Eugene chapter, I don't know, 5, 6 times over the years. We used to go to the woodcrafter place. And so what I'm going to do tonight, we're going to do a short slideshow showing you how to cut the bowl out of the tree. And then I'm going to finish turn a bowl. I know a lot of you probably don't have chainsaws, don't process your own wood. The whole point of this demo, though, the slideshow, is to show you when you go to a wood place to buy a bowl blank, you can look at the end grain and you'll know what kind of bowl you're going to get out. That's the whole point if you don't have chainsaws. If you've got a chainsaw, that's better. I rarely turn wood that I don't cut out of the tree myself. When a wood merchant is cutting a tree up, he's cutting it up for the most bowl blanks. When I cut up a tree, I'm cutting it up for the best bowl blanks. And so tonight you're going to get my way. You're not getting the best way, you're not getting the worst way, you're getting my way. I would say be aware of people who tell you there's only one way to turn a bowl. There are hundreds of ways to turn a bowl. I have a little bowl at home that was turned on a treadle lathe over in China. The guy sits there and the arbor's this way and he's treadling and he's turning the bowl. Electricity's a nice thing. So you're going to get my way. And so we'll do the slideshow and then we're going to turn a bowl and we'll get to that. I get no money from any vendor. If I say I like something, it's because I like it. You probably shouldn't ask me about easy wood turning tools. About 15 years ago, I was doing a demo down Memphis. And somebody in the back room, this is right after easy wood turning tools came out. And he says, I'm looking around, there's no ladies in here. This guy in the back, he says, what do you think of easy wood turning tools? I said, I think they're the dumbest fucking thing I've ever seen. It was a salesman for easy wood tools. Now a good friend of mine, but they're not they have their use. The next day we were at his place and I was turning an oval and he handed me the round easy wood tool. And I was turning the inside of the oval and I tipped it up at 45 and it was doing a perfect job shear scraping. He says, no, you're supposed to use it flat. I said, no. It's a good tool, you just have to use it right. But anyway, I don't get any money, so if you ask me a question about tools, I'll try to tell you which tools I'm using. We're really lucky we have a lot of good tools out there, wood turning tools. You got D-Way up in Shelton, you got Doug Thompson, you got Robust, and there are and then you got all the companies from England that are all really good companies. So when I started turning back in '78, there was a few tools in England, but all I knew about was Sears. I still have all my Sears tools, they're good steel. The new stuff that Sears came out lately, they changed their steel. But when I got mine in '78, it's good steel. I still have all of them. Okay, so we're going to start with a slideshow, and I'm going to show you. Oh, it turned off? Sorry. Okay. Okay. All right. So you can look up here at the slideshow. This is a big black walnut tree up in Camas. And one of the benefits, I actually got a call from Canada, a friend up in Canada says, hey, my friend down in Camas, right on the Columbia, is taking out a big walnut tree. Do you want it? This is now a gas station. They had to get rid of this. So my deal with the guy was, I'll pay for it to have it taken down if I get the tree. And he was happy. He got rid of it. I made him some nice bowl. Next. So it's 42-inch diameter. This is my arborist. I hired him to take it down. If you take a big tree and you just tip it down, all the big limbs you're gonna break your crotches, which is, you're gonna see why you don't want to do that. Next, on the right is my high school buddy. He brought along a big front end loader and a truck to haul this away. Next, this is my favorite picture. This guy's 5'7". He's a mountain climber. He's climbing this tree with 2 chainsaws hanging off his belt. And the one on the left is like an 066 or an 075. I don't remember. He's climbing the tree. And now I want you to, this crotch is about 30 foot up the tree. And we're going to cut this crotch up here just shortly. Next. And he tied off 2 ropes so he could swing around the tree. Next. And he's testing his ropes. Next. The first thing he did was get rid of all the small stuff so we could see what we've got. Next. And if you notice, he's cutting about 6 inches past the crotch. And you're going to see why that's important in a minute. And then on the left, he's going to go up that limb to the left, up where that crotch is right at the top, cut off those limbs, come back down and drop that log. And when he does that, that way, when it comes down, it's not going to hurt anything. If he just cut it off now, that crotch up there, which is pretty good size, would get busted. And you're going to see that's not good. Next. And then he went up to the top. Next. And about halfway down to the main crotch, he came down, cut it there, cut it above the main crotch. Next. And then the truck is over to the right. Normally he wouldn't put a rope on it. We put a rope on it because we wanted to make sure it went right where we wanted it. And then I cut the crotch off, and then we did 4 6-foot sections, which were about as much as Dwayne's front end loader could move. Next. This is just the limbs. That's just the limbs. I didn't take a picture of the log, which I really regret doing. We had two loads with his truck and 2 loads with my pickup. Next. Okay, so this is the main crotch. To the left is going down the tree, to the right is going up the tree. And bark is really abrasive on your chainsaw blade. And so what I've done is chop the bark off where I'm going to cut. It just saves my chainsaw blades. And going down, go back one, going down, that's straight grain. And then from the bark on the top going up, that's straight grain. I just have to simplify this crotch. It's a 5-way crotch. It's a very complicated piece of wood. Next. That's a straight grain. Next. And one more. Next. So now I'm cutting right above the first crotch. And I don't have a picture, but the next saw cut was horizontal through that crotch. And you'll see that when we get to the drawings. Next. Look at this feather. This is this feather. You'd have a mirror image. It's about an 18-inch solid feather, no cracks, no flaws, no bark inclusions. And so each of those bowls was probably a $600 bowl just from that one crotch. Next, and there's the bowl. And so that would have went for $650, $700 in the gallery. So I paid the arborist $500 to take the tree down. That's why. Next. Okay, so now we're on to the main crotch. Next. And I don't know if you can see, I don't have a pointer here. There's 5 limbs coming off this. Over to the far left is 1, and there's 2, 3, 4, and then 1 to the right. And so you don't just start cutting this up. You have to look at how it grew. Do I have anything long and pointy? I'm going to borrow this here for a second here. So the most valuable wood is from, you see the 3 big limbs, is from the pith of the one there on the left to the one on the top, and from the top down to the one on the bottom. That's where the most valuable wood is in this whole piece of wood. Next. And so can you see the red marks? I've marked the piths. And so the most valuable wood is that horizontal line going across there and the vertical one going from pith to pith. My first cut is over here on the left on that vertical red line. I'm going to cut straight down the tree. Next. And that's that. So I've separated that off. So that's a nice crotch. And I'm going to cut, you'll see in another couple pictures from the pith down, and I'll get 2 feathers out of that. Next. And again, you see I just keep connecting the piths. Next. And these 2 small limbs I just had to ignore. It was too complicated to deal with them. I just had to ignore them. Next. So there's the cut, and you can see the two down here on this bottom piece where those two small limbs are. And again, another 15, 16-inch flawless feather. Again, very valuable piece of wood. Next. And there's the bowl, and you can see the two limbs there on the lower left. And next. And again, now I'm cutting from the top pith down to this bottom pith. And I had a feather on both sides of this piece of wood, and I had to pick the best one and sacrifice the other one. Next. And this is Howard Bohr, a good friend of mine. We collected wood together for 25 years. Next. And there's all the pieces that came out of the crotch. And I've put Seal Tight 60 on them, the liquid wax. Liquid wax buys you some time. It does not buy you forever. So it buys you some time because it's going to, if you don't seal up the end grain, it's going to crack, and then you wasted your time. To the left is the logs. I was heading to New Zealand, and I wanted to, those logs are facing south, and I didn't want the sun to crack them, so I protected the wood. Next. All right, so now we're going to, I'm going to show you how to, where these come out of the tree. And we're going to put one camera on our, there we go. We good? Oh, there we go. All right. I want it on the paper, yep. There we go. Okay. There we go. And then this one, we're going to put the slideshow on this one. Can we do that?
I'm sure we can do that.
Can we switch back and forth then?
Yeah, we can switch back.
All right. So there's the bowl. Here's your tree. There's the pith, the center. That bowl came out of the tree just like this. And if you do that, go back to the, you see you get what I call a butterfly pattern. So that bowl came out of the tree that way. Next. Next slide. Okay, so this one is the same way, except the bowl exactly matches the circumference of the tree. Okay, and you'll get that pattern where the annual growth ring follows the shape of the bowl. Okay, next. This is quarter sawn. I'm going to waste some paper here. Teacher's going to come back to class on Monday, and they're going to miss some of their paper. All right, this is quarter sawn. This bowl came out of a tree just like this, because if you look at it, the lines are coming, the annual growth rings are this way. So if you look at a bowl, I'll just compare it here for a minute. And this one here has the annual growth rings going this way. You get the butterfly pattern. Up here, if you get it off here, it's quarter sawn. And you'll notice that one was white oak. I don't do very many quarter sawn. I don't think it really shows the grain that well. But on white oak, quarter sawn is better than flat sawn. And if you look at the myrtle platter that's back here, it's quarter sawn. So just depending. Next. The next one comes out of the tree this way. So it's natural. It could be natural edge, or you can make it flat. But in this case, the annual growth rings are coming through the bowl like this. So you end up with that oval pattern in the back of the bowl. So this one's flat sawn and this one's flat sawn, but depending which way you turn up, you get a completely different pattern in your bowl. So they're both flat sawn, but this one's got the bark towards the rim and this one's got the bark towards the bottom. Everybody follow that? All right, next. There we go. Okay, burl. Madrone burl. You'll see a couple of madrone burl bowls back there, or a bowl, and one of them's an oval. I'm going to talk, this burl I'm talking about now is big leaf maple and Pacific madrone, which we have here. There's another type of burl, which cherry burl and birch burl, which is called swirl burl. In those burls, the wood grows in a circular pattern, kind of like this tall piece in the back that's back behind my platter. That's more of a swirl burl. On maple and madrone, it's pin burl, and I'll just draw a picture of how it grows. We're just going to do a real simple one here. First of all, when you look at your neighbor's tree and you see this big burl, looks like a cancerous growth on the side of their tree, you have to go over to them and tell them, hey, your tree is sick. I have to cut that piece of wood off. Save your tree. So don't make the mistake, though, of thinking that that burl grew in like this. It doesn't grow like that. The burl grows in a snow cone pattern. So this is straight grain here. This is straight grain here. And the pin burl, like maple and madrone, the eyes grow out like this. They grow in a fan pattern. So this bowl that's up there is taken out of the burl just like this. And you can see the lines going across the bottom of the bowl. If you turn that bowl 90 degrees and you take a bowl out like this, you get the next picture. Go to the next slide. You get the ends of the burl. So just depending which 90 degrees, you can change the pattern in the bowl. Everybody kind of follow that? And again, cherry and birch, they grow in a circular pattern. It's a different type of burl pattern. And for the most part, I don't turn those woods. Next. Okay, so this is a crotch. This is a simple two-way crotch feather. You guys might owe the school another piece of paper. All right. So I'm just going to draw just a single, double, typical crotch. All right. So here's our crotch. Where is the feather? So here's our pith. That's the pith, center of the tree. The feather is from the crotch to the pith. And the feather is almost twice as dense as straight grain wood because that's what holds the limb onto the tree. And so you'll see there's a black walnut feather piece back here that it grows in almost a circular pattern in the feather, and that literally is what holds the limb onto the tree. After a big windstorm, if you see a limb that's come off a tree, a lot of times you'll see bark inclusions in there where it didn't heal together right, and that's why the limb fell off the tree. So for the feather, for this one right here, I'm going to take my tree here and I'm going to turn it 90 degrees, all right? I'm going to turn this tree 90 degrees. And let's see, there's the top of our crotch. Here's our pith. Earlier, all our bowls were taken out of the tree this way, with the bottom of the bowl to the bark side. If you do that in a crotch piece, the feather is right here. If you turn it that way, you turn out all the feather. So in the crotch pieces, you turn them with the top up towards the bark, and that way when you turn your bowl, that feather pattern runs around the bottom of the bowl. Okay? I saw an article back when Wood Turning Design was still publishing. They had an article there, turn a crotch bowl. And the guy turned him the other way, and he turned out all the feather, and he just had straight grain wood left. So, the question is, do I take the pith out? Yes, I try to get the pith out. If the crotch is big enough, like in black walnut, I'll take one bowl off each side. English walnut generally has a shallower crotch shape, and I might just take one bowl out of it like this, and then you have to live with the pith. And what I do is after I've rough turned the bowl, I take thin super glue and I soak the end grain of those piths both inside and out to try to basically plasticize the knot so it doesn't crack during the drying process. So if it's a narrow crotch, I'll just take one bowl, But with black walnut, it's generally quite a wide crotch, and you can generally get 2. Okay, next. Okay, so this is a red maple, or excuse me, red oak crotch. I don't know if it's, I didn't get a very good background picture, but there's a limb on the left, limb on the right. Next. I've cut off the 2 limbs. Next. This is the bottom of the crotch. And you can see a lot of trees don't grow symmetrical. I've marked the center, the pith of the log. Next. This is the upper side. And I've marked both piths, and I draw a line straight down from one pith to the other pith, and I want to get that line running straight up and down. And then I can chainsaw, and I always chainsaw from the upper side because the best feather is right next to the top of the crotch. And so if the bottom wanders a little bit, I don't care so much because the best feather is up towards the crotch. Next. And so I've sawed right down from one pith to the other. Next. Now you can see here, there's bark inclusion in this crotch, and it pretty much wiped out the feather pattern. The bark inclusion, you don't want it. Pieces of wood will just fall apart if that bark inclusion is big enough. Next, I think we're about, then I drew circles. When I'm doing a crotch piece, I take my calipers and I draw my circle, and I try to get the feather running right down the middle of the bowl or the oval. Next, and just chainsaw them so I could actually lift them into the pickup. This stuff's pretty heavy. Next. This is just how I get my wood. This is actually a walnut stump. You know, the big walnut trees are all dying from the 1000 canker disease, so they're taking a lot of them out, and they cut them at ground level. But I've learned to dig down on one face and take about the top 16 inches off of the stump, which is where all the highly figured wood is. And so this is a bunch of slabs off of a stump. Next. So it goes in, this has been bandsawed. Next. And now it's been roughed out, and I'm not going to cover drying because that's a whole nother topic. But it sits on the floor until it's stable. And I think that's it. And the second person that we draw, they get an AEW t-shirt from the Portland Symposium, the 2024 Portland Symposium. So, they might want the t-shirt more than the bowl. I got it right on the mouth. Yeah. Okay. Can you guys in the back hear me okay? Okay, the guys in the back can hear me. All right. Glasses, okay. This bowl, it's now magically a year later, this bowl is dry. And you can see it's not running true. It's moved as it's dried. That's the advantage of green turning wood. If you just take a solid block of wood and try to dry it, first of all, it'll take a long time, but it's more likely to crack. By roughing out your bowl, you allow the wood to move as it dries, and it's less likely to crack. So I do it in 2 steps. The Japanese do it in 3 steps. They would take this bowl now, they would turn it down to just over finished size, throw it back up on the shelf and let it sit for a month or 2, and let the stress out of it. Because when I turn this bowl now tonight, when I get down here to the bottom, the top rim is going to already be moved out around because of stress in the wood. So if you want it to be perfectly round, you need to turn it 3 times. I don't have that much patience, so. All right, speed. Just briefly, I turn as slow as I can, but as fast as I need to. Excluding the fishermen in here, how many of you have had a piece of wood come off the lathe? Everybody raise your hand. The slower you're turning when it comes off the lathe, the less it's going to hurt. OSHA is not in your shop. You have to be the safety person in your shop. If you don't do good safety things, you're the one that's going to pay the price. I'm not going to pay the price. So, as opposed to my good friend Jimmy Clues, who I know some of you have watched, Jimmy would put this lathe in the high range, turn it all the way up, and turn it about 3,000 RPM. He's a professional. He comes from England. He spent his whole life turning wood. That's his choice. I make a different choice. When I was on the AEW board, we had 2 AEW members killed wood turning. You can kill yourself at this, Or you can hurt yourself like Lynn, the gal, she had a piece of wood come apart, slammed the side of her face, damaged her optical nerve, busted her bones in her face. She's permanently injured from turning crappy wood with, she knew it was crappy wood. She had some tape around it, hoping the tape would hold it together. So you have to be the safety person. I'm not going to push the issue, but you don't need to turn really fast. If you have sharp tools and good wood, you can turn at pretty reasonable speeds. Most of my speeds today will be 600, 650, roughly in that ballpark. Little bigger bowls a little slower, smaller bowls a little faster. All right? So the first thing I'm going to do is just find out how much good wood I've got. I'm going to true up the top, I'm going to true up the inside, and I'll true up the outside. I just want to know how much wood I have left from this piece of wood moving. Apple wood moves a lot. Black walnut's pretty stable. This one's moved about average. So I'm just going to clean up the top, clean up the inside, and then we'll go to the outside. I'm going to use the heel of my tool. Dale has his big turning tools here. Okay, we're on the overhead camera, right? Yes. I'm turning Pacific Madrone, straight grain Pacific Madrone. It's the best wood in the world. Boy, it's been boiled and dried, yeah, but it's the best turning wood. This is the bevel right here. I'm going to put it parallel, go straight in with this cut. I'll use the heel of the tool to find where the wood is because you really can't see it. I call this the crust. The outside is much harder than once I get through the crust, the wood's a lot smoother. You can use the heel of the tool. You can tell it's not round. Not quite round. One more cut. Okay. Turn the lathe off before you move your tool rest. The question from my smart aleck friend over here to the left is, once I get it round, I don't turn the lathe off. But my tool rest is round. This tool rest is quite sharp. I don't like this tool rest. Again, I like Powermatic's good equipment. I just don't like this tool rest. You're going to see me use robust tool rests. I prefer them. I heard a question, but I didn't hear what the question. Robo hip. As long as it's got the round on the top, I'm happy. And Reed's not selling equipment anymore, right? Reed, you're out of business. There you go. All right. Now all I'm going to do is take off barely enough wood on the inside to get it down to round. And I'll talk about tool angles in a little bit. And this is why you need to tell your wife, and I don't see any women in here, so I can be a male chauvinist, why you need 2 lathes. Now, I know I can slide the headstock here, but don't tell your wife you can do that. You need a bowl lathe. I do all my finish turning on a bowl lathe with a bed about this long. I'd have my body over here. You saw I started this cut with my arm clear out here. That's not a very good cut. That's bad on your shoulders. On my lathe at home, I'd be over here. So you need a second bowl lathe, all right? You need one lathe like this for roughing out, and you need a second lathe. I have 8 lathes, so I need every one of them. Yeah, here's one of Reed's tool rests. Yeah, this is robust outside curved tool rest. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the outside. I'm going to get it down to round. I'm going to get it down to round, and then we're going to talk about doing the finish work. I'm going to completely finish the outside of this bowl before I move back to the inside. Again, make sure it goes round, because if you turn the lathe on and it hits the tool rest, you'll have an exciting life. I have to look down at, I demo on a lot of different lathes, right? They all have different buttons. So if you see me do this is where my bowl lathe is for 35 years. I don't even have to look, it's right here, right? So I have to look down to see where the buttons are. Okay, you'll also notice I'm not coming off this edge. If you come off this edge, that's an unsupported cut, and you'll bust this edge. So on this top edge, I'm coming in. Do not do an unsupported cut and come off. You could bust out a chunk of your bowl. So, and I'll talk about tool angles in a little bit. Again, I'm just taking off enough to get down to round. All I want to do is get down to round. And when you're getting a good cut, that's what you get. All right, we're around there. I'm going to start at the bottom. Now, we're on the overhead camera. Oh, okay. It's a little hard to see. I have two steps. When I rough out, I use a chuck to rough out. But when I finish turn, I use a faceplate. You'll notice it's a little bit hard to see on this. I can move. Hang on. I'm going to move the. Hang on here a second. I want to get the camera where you can see this. Where's the. Oh, there we go. There we go. There, that's where I want it. All right. All right. You'll notice there's two steps here. On cheap wood like this was literally firewood. I have a second step here where I've screwed in. I like using a faceplate when I finish turn because I don't have that big chuck in my way. And I get better access down here to the bottom. And this second step here is going to get turned away. Now if I'm turning burl like that Madrone burl bowl that's back there, I don't want to waste a half inch of burl that I just paid $1.25 a pound for wet. And so there I would put a glue block on. I just have to take a piece of scrap wood, put a glue block on, and screw into that. I'm not going to screw into burl and waste my $1.25 a pound. The last burl I got, I wrote a check for $3,200 for this burl. It kind of hurts to write that check, but it's nice wood. So on nice wood, I'd use a glue block. On wood like this, or cherry, or sapwood, like black walnut sapwood, I'll use that for my glue block. All right, so now we're going to completely finish turn the outside of this. Yes, question. The question is how long are the screws I'm using? I'll pass them around. This faceplate was made by Howard Bohr. Howard had here we can just pass it. So it's got the 3/4 inch screws in it, real short. If you're going to plan to get a bunch of catches, you need to use more screws and longer screws. Hopefully I don't end up with any catches so I can get by with a little bit shorter screws. The biggest thing is you'll notice these are number 12 screws. The screw needs to completely fill the hole on your faceplate. If you use a smaller screw than the hole and you get a catch, it'll shift the faceplate. So your screw needs to fill the hole of your faceplate. And I'm going to talk, let me just get this round, then we'll talk about angles. And I'll pass all my tools around as I finish up with them. It's nice if I get most of them back at the end. Hear how hard that is? The crust again is much harder. Once I get down into the good wood, it'll get quieter. Normally, the more noise your tool is using, or the more noise your tool is making, the poorer your cut. Almost. I think I have my tool rest a little bit low. And I've been using a 5/8 just to get it round. And we're pretty close. We're not quite to round, but pretty close, close enough. I'm going to switch over to the 1/2 inch. I use a 1/2 inch bowl gouge for probably 90% of the work I do in my shop. I use it for spindle turning. I use it for spheres. I use it for bowl turning. I have a lot of tools, but the 1/2 inch bowl gouge is my favorite. And so now, all of my cuts are going to be from the bottom up to the top, all right? If you go the other way, it's unsupported. Let's see if I can do this with my fingers. The grain is running like this. If you go this way, those are unsupported cuts and you'll get tear out. If you come up this way from the bottom of the bowl up to the top of the bowl, each fiber is supported by the one behind it. That's a supported cut and you'll get a cleaner cut. As I talk, when I turn, I have to spit the wood chips out. So I'm going to start down here at the bottom. This is one of the problems I notice when I go and look at instant galleries and stuff. People use a chuck to finish their stuff, and they let their equipment dictate their shape. Don't let your equipment dictate the shape of your artwork. So I've got the tool with the cutting angle of my gouge. This bevel right here is riding the wood, and this edge here is at about 45 degrees to the wood, and I'll be shaving the wood off. I still am a little bit out around here, so it won't be quite good yet. But almost all of my cuts are with this cutting angle at 45 degrees to the wood. And I have the handle right here in my thigh, and this is a pull cut, and I'm just pulling it up, and it's really stable to have this right in your thigh, and I'm shifting from one foot to the other. And I'm actually holding my body pretty stable, but shifting the weight on my feet. So I actually have the weight on my left foot right now, and it'll gradually move back to my right foot. If my head gets in the way of the camera, let me know. This floor is really slick. I turn on a mat. I have a really nice mat, but I can feel that I'm kind of sliding a little bit. My pressure is down on the tool rest. Pressure is not into the wood. Pressure is down on the tool rest. Now you can start to see I'm starting to get a little bit better chips. This is what you want. You want shavings. You don't really want chips. You want shavings. I'm just peeling that wood off. Okay, I think we're down to round. Whoops. Any questions so far? All right, we're down to round. At this point, I have a chair, a height that I can sit on, and I look at my shape. I'd get this out of the way. I turn the lathe on, and I look at my shape. And it looks like to me my foot is still too big of diameter. I'm going to take it down a little bit. Otherwise, I like the shape pretty much. So I just moved the tool rest while the lathe is running. But the bowl is round now. My tool rest is round. If I happen to hit the bowl, it's still okay. But everything is round. But if I was starting out new, I would turn the lathe off. Dennis Stewart started our Cascade in 1990. We were over at his place one time watching him do a demo. He's doing a natural edge hollow form. And he moved the tool rest while the lathe was running. Took the natural edge right off of it. So it's much safer, much safer to turn the lathe off. All right. I just took a little bit of diameter off the foot. People ask how big should the foot be? And the right answer is it should be appropriate for the bowl. I know that's not the answer new people want to hear, but it's the right answer. I went down to my gallery where I keep my bowls till they go to my galleries and sell them. And I'm going to turn the speed up here. I'm going to turn the speed up a little bit. I'm down to round. It says now I'm doing 555. Yeah, that's about where. So 575. All right, that's about where I turn. Once I got it. Anyway, I measured all the feet. Wide, flat bowls have a foot about 50%. Medium bowls have about a 33% foot. A tall, narrow bowl will have a 25% foot. So it's just what looks good for that. What I don't like to see is on a small bowl with a big foot that somebody's had a chuck and they let the chuck determine the shape of their bowl. Don't let your chuck, put a piece of scrap wood on there and get the foot the right where it needs to be. Yeah, I've got the tool at 45 degrees to the wood. I'm taking lighter cuts now. I'm actually looking up here on the horizon. I've got a little bit of a high spot right here, and I've got a high spot right here. So, and your fingers can feel shapes your eye can't see. So I've got, like right where my finger is, I can feel a little bit of a bump. I'm going to come back and get rid of that bump. All right, I'm going to move the tool rest a little bit again. Okay. You can hear how much quieter the tool cut is. I'm not going to go off this edge. I'm going to get really close to it, but not go off of it. My bump is right here. Whoops. You hear that harmonic? That's because I put too much pressure on the wood. I got to lighten up on my pressure. If you get a bounce, your first reaction is to put more pressure on the wood. All that'll do is increase your bounce. If you're getting a bounce, you got to back off a little bit. Now my high spot has moved a little bit. I'm going to come in on this top edge just a little bit. Okay, getting better. Right here, there's a little bit. Okay, so all of my cuts, my finishing cuts were from the bottom up to the top. I'm feeling it right now. There's a little bit of a high spot right here, just a little bit. I'm just going to take a shaving off. Okay, and I've still got this high spot right here. Let's see if I can. I'm going to get off the bevel for a second because I've got a bounce there. I'm just going to. Okay. Good enough. All right. Keep pushing the wrong button. On the gouge, I don't know. I'll pass it around here in a little bit and you can look at it. I don't really care what the angle is on my gouge. I care what the angle of the cutting edge is to the wood. I could take anybody's gouge in here. You all have different types of gouges. As long as it's sharp, I don't really care what the angle is on your gouge. I'm going to put the cutting edge at about 45 degrees to the wood. So people that tell you there's just one angle on a gouge, it's not the angle on the gouge, it's the angle of the cutting edge to the wood. All right, so now I learned this from Richard Raffin and Ray Keyes. They both use oil. I'm going to put some, this is walnut salad oil on here. What the oil does is it softens the wood, so I'll get a little bit better cut with my finishing cuts. It's just plain old salad oil. I buy it out of 5-gallon buckets out of California, but you can get it in any store that has, they have peanut oil, walnut oil, olive oil. It's untreated. What Mike Mahoney's done, Mike's a smart guy, he's taken raw walnut oil and boiled it, and it changes the polymer from a short polymer to a longer polymer, and it dries quicker. And I pay $20 a gallon for the oil. He buys it, I'm sure, in the 55-gallon drums at, probably $6 a gallon or something. And then he sells a pint for $18. So he's a smart guy. The advantage is the longer polymer oil will dry quicker. He was a production turner. That was important to him. I'm not a production turner. I don't care. It takes a little longer for it to dry. All right, I'm going to use 3 tools now. I'm going to shear scrape the outside of this. Down at the foot, I'm going to use a little, I call it my little less than 90. This is less than 90. And I've ground off this back edge right here. And I'm just going to come into the foot at 45 degrees this way, 45 degrees this way, and just shear cut it a little bit. And then I've got 2 scrapers. I've got one that's going to come in on the top this way, and the main one's going to come from the bottom up this way, again with this angle at about 45 degrees to the wood. All right? All right, so I'm going to move my tool rest a little bit again. I'll lay this off. Okay. I have, on my bowl lathe, I have 2 lights. I have good lights in my shop, and then I have 2 more lights right here. As I get older, I need more light. So it's good to have good light. So I'm just holding the tool at about 45 degrees to the foot of the bowl. Okay. Switch it over, tip it up 45 degrees this way. No pressure on the wood. This is a little piece of planer blade. I love planer blade. It's designed to shave wood. The metal, I don't know what the metal is. It's not high-speed steel, but it's designed to shave wood. So that's exactly what I want to do here. Okay. Again, you don't want to go off this edge. That's unsupported. Don't do that. Nick Cook's got a really good article that was in a journal about 4 years ago called Don't Do That. It's got about 20 things of don't do that. Nick Cook's a really great guy. He's down there in Marietta, Georgia. One of the, I would call the current godfathers of American wood turning. We tried to get him to come up to the Oregon Symposium, but he's got some health issues now. So, again, 45 degrees to the wood. No pressure on the wood. You're just, I don't know if I can show you what we're taking. I'm going to see if I can show you what we're taking off. Just taking off. Can you see that? Just almost featherweight shavings. All I want to do is take off the high spots. That should be pretty good. Okay, there's no tear out at all on this right now. Okay. So now we're going to go to using a cabinet scraper. Done. Everybody's seen Robust. This is an outside curved tool rest. One way's got it. If you're going to turn a lot of bowls, it's what you need. I'm going to re-oil this. I learned using a cabinet scraper on bowls from Swede Pearson, one of the original members of Cascade Woodturners back. World War II guy, construction worker, did beautiful woodworking. He was the top mechanic for the Air Force down the islands during World War II. He could overrule the generals and stuff. They kept busting him back to private, but he was still the top mechanic for the Air Force on the islands. Okay, cabinet scraper, you can buy it at any store. I've got a burr edge on this. I'm going to hold it down again at about 45 degrees to the wood. No pressure on the wood, just touching it. I'm going to come from the bottom up. I'm going to stop it. I'm going to put this in reverse. I'm going to come over the top. I only do this on the outside. I don't do it on the inside. You could use a curved one on the inside. I think that's dangerous. There was a bowl turner from California that was in the journal about 2 journals ago, and he uses a round one on the inside. He does a lot of bowls. I think if you get a catch and that piece of metal goes around, it could be bad on your fingers. Here, there's just literally no, you're down, you're not going to get a catch, and you get no harmonic, and you clean this up, and it's a pretty nice way to do it. Any questions on cabinet scrapers? Right here. I mean, these are like $10 at Woodcrafters. What? Yeah. The thing I like is you can see this is flexible. I don't know if I like, there's some of them are too stiff. This is then there's one that's thinner than this. I don't like that. This is the one I like that's a little bit flexible. In the back, there was a question. There is a burr. I've taken, let's see if I've got my deal. Hang on here. The way I sharpen this, I put it in my vise. I take just a regular bastard file, flatten this up this way. Then I actually have a different one, but this is carbide. And I tip it down at an angle and I rub it real hard. And that rolls that edge up. And it's almost a knife edge. It's really sharp. And here we can pass it around. Be careful, it is quite sharp. And the little hand deal is just carbide. I use it on you'll see on the inside the bowl when I do the half round on the inside. All right, we're going to sand now. I'm going to turn the speed down. Whoops, wrong way. Hang on. I sand it about 400 RPM, maybe a little slower. Dave Ellsworth had an article in the Journal a couple years ago before he died. Hard for him to write articles now. He sands at 200 RPM, or used to sand at 200 RPM. If you sand too fast, a couple of things happen. One, the sandpaper just skates over the wood. And secondly, you build up heat, and if you're using tropical hardwoods like cocobolo and stuff, that heat can crack the wood. So I go very slow when I sand. What's the next thing you notice about using oil when you're finishing up a salad bowl? No dust. So it shouldn't take too much here. I'm going to re-oil this now. So dust is not a good thing for you. You notice I'm not wearing a dust mask. Dust is a really bad thing for you. I was doing a demo down at Provo one time, and I did my talk, and I always say you shouldn't smoke if you're a wood turner, because smoking, the nicotine paralyzes the cilia, the little hairs in your throat and stuff. They don't work for like 6 hours after you have your cigarette. And so it doesn't remove any of the gunk. So I just mentioned it and I went on. And I got done with the demo. And this guy came up and he started poking me in the chest. He says, you gotta talk more about that, Dale. And he was really insistent. And I finally says, I gotta know, what do you do? He's a thoracic surgeon. He spends his whole day just cutting out cancerous lungs from people that smoke. So, whoops. All right, that was 100 grit. I'm now on 120. Okay, good question. What kind of paper am I using? I'm using cling spore, and this is aluminum oxide, cloth backed, and it's resin bond. That's important because there's glue bond sandpaper where I've got kind of a dark spot right here. I don't like this spot. I'm gonna go back to the cabinet scraper for a second here. Can you see these two? What's that? Oh, is the cabinet scraper going around? Yeah, let me borrow the cabinet scraper. I forgot. I didn't get a good job on it. Whoops. Oh, that's. Oh, okay. So, if we had a guy from 3M come in and talk to our club years ago, and he did a slideshow. I can go back around. And if you look at aluminum oxide, under a microscope, it kind of looks like the gravel out in the driveway. And but it's a very durable abrasive. And I'm going to talk about silicon carbide here in just a second. All right. Better. All right. Somebody's getting this bowl for $1. I don't want any tool marks on it. So I go 100, 120, 180, 220, 320. My good friend Bob Espin up in Winlock, who died a couple years ago, one of the most innovative wood turners I've ever met in my life, he went 100, 150, 220, 320. He did better work than me. I just this is a sequence I like. I find that 100 grit is about twice as abrasive as 120. So with 100, I make sure I get all the tool marks out. All right, that looks good. Going to 220. When I first started turning in 78, all I had was my Craftsman tools, and they just had a spindle gouge. And I turned bowls for 11 years with spindle gouges, scraping them. Started with 50 grit sandpaper, and spent 4 hours getting the bowl turned and 4 hours sanding. Okay, I want to show you the next thing. Yeah, okay. You notice the silicon or the aluminum oxide paper that I've been using has got P180 on it. P means it's European grit. I'm now going to silicon carbide, which is American, Canadian, 320. Notice there's no P on it. They are different grit systems. If you see P, it means it's a European grit. One's not better than the other. They're just different. Up to 220, they're about the same. After 220, they wildly diverge. And so 320 without the P is much finer grit than P320. So just be aware they are different grit systems. They are not the same, they're just different. Not better, not worse. Now I'm going to go to silicon carbide. If you look at silicon carbide under a microscope, it'll look like little shards of glass. It's a much sharper abrasive. It's a little bit softer abrasive. But you'll get a better finish with silicon carbide than you will with aluminum oxide. And I'm going to go both directions now here with this one. If you just go one direction, you're going to get some little hairs to lay down, and then by going both directions, you pick up those hairs. You'll get a little bit better finish. If I was turning white oak or black locust or some other hard brittle wood like koa, I would reverse sand every grit. I would never buy a lathe today that didn't have reverse on it. All right, we're done sanding. Okay, now we're going to go to the inside. Yes, question. Yep, okay, 5-minute break. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and start. We got a clock here, right? Okay. The outside's completely done. If you want to do beads or any carving or stuff, you would want to do that now, because once I turn the inside this bowl, this is going to go out around on the outside just because of the change in stress. So if you want to put beads on it, and madrone and cherry, they're pretty nice to do beading on. I'm just going to use a 3/8 inch bowl gouge. I'm going to put the bevel right here on the wood. If you leave your rim of your bowl flat, it will not look good. You can taper it or crown it or put a bead on it. Do something to the rim, but don't leave it flat. If you leave it flat, your bowl will kind of look dead. Almost all of my bowls are tapered in so that when you look at them, your eye kind of goes into the bowl. So we're going to turn the speed back up now. Use the heel of my tool to find the wood. Just tip my hand out. I just went off that edge. That's an unsupported cut. That's not good. But I'm going to turn away that edge, so I don't really care that it's not a clean cut. I'm using a 3/8 inch bowl gouge. It takes a little bit smaller bite, and I just get a little nicer cut with it on the rim. This will be my last cut. I'm going to go a little slower. If you're getting tear out when you make a cut with a sharp tool, when you get tear out, you're getting tear out because you're pushing the tool. Hey, Rich. All right, I'm going to oil that up. If you're getting tear out, it means you're pushing the tool through the wood faster than the tool is cutting the wood, and you'll get tear out. So I'm just going to use my little less than 90 tool, hold it up here at 45 degrees, and just touch this. And this edge right now is really sharp. And if you don't believe that, I don't know if the camera can pick up these two parallel scars that are right here. There's two parallel scars from sticking that into a bowl. The good thing is when it goes around, it cauterizes the blood so you don't bleed onto the wood. I'm just going to put a small camphor on this edge so that it's not sharp. That's all I'm going to do. Just a small camphor just so that that edge is not sharp. Okay, the rim is done. We're done with the rim. Now this is if you notice, this is a robust J-tool rest. I love their J-tool rest. It just gives me nice access. I notice that this bowl has a rotten knot in it. I hope that goes away. If it doesn't, that's life. You know, that's what you get for a buck, yeah. How are we on the camera? I'm gonna move this back. This leg is in the way right now. Sorry. I'm gonna move this back. We're done with the inside. So Again, this is why you need a second lathe. You need a bowl lathe. I do all my finish turning on a bowl lathe. And the advantage to that is that I don't have to deal with the leg out here or the bed out here. How much wood have I got? This is really critical now. I have 1 inch of wood. Okay, I got lots of wood. Okay, we got lots of wood. I'm going to go in with the bevel rubbing and a little bit open like this and just ride that around. Now you're going to notice when I pass the tools around, the 1/2 inch has a sharper angle on it than the 5/8. I'm going to do the first third with the 1/2 inch, but it won't be able to go around this corner because I won't be able to ride the bevel as I go around this corner. So I go to the 5/8, and it's got a blunter bevel on it, and I'll pass, when I get done with the two tools, I'll pass them around so you can compare the angles. And then on the bottom, I'm going to use a bottom bowl gouge, which is even blunter. So I'm going to start with the 1/2 inch. We can go a little bit faster, up around 600 roughly. Use the tool to find your wood. I'm on the bevel, come back off the wood, move over a little bit, and go in. Now watch my right hand. My right hand is continually moving back towards my body. So I stay on my bevel. I learned this from Wally Dickerman, 1989 in Seattle at the symposium. Go to the symposium. How many people here are going to go to Raleigh? You wimps, go to Raleigh. It's 3 months away or 2.5 months. If you don't spend the money, when you drop dead, your grandkids just going to have a damn party anyway. So you might as well blow it on this earth.
Where is it next year?
They haven't announced it yet for next year, but next March at Albany, which all of you can drive to, we're going to have the Oregon Symposium. We got Eliyahu Sarah from Israel, one of the great demonstrators, Jim Sunnerud from Minnesota. We're trying to get Stuart Mortimer from England. He's got some health issues. Elizabeth Weber's going to come down. John Beaver's coming up from California. Eric Lofstrom's going to come down from Tacoma or wherever he lives now. It's going to be Elizabeth Weber's going to come down from Seattle. So you guys can all go to that one. Whoops. So what happened there, I got a kickback. I don't want to do that if I can avoid it. So let's see how much wood we got now. So I want my rim to be about 1/2 inch, the wall to be about 3/8. We have a question in the back?
Yes, you said you had a kickback. How did you
Okay, good question. How did I get the kickback? Let me measure my wood, then I'll talk about that. What happened was I started to push the tool into the wood before I had a bevel, and it grabbed the tool and pushed it back. So I'm holding with my hand here, and you need to, as you go in, you want to just touch the wood and kind of let it sit there until it kind of makes its own bevel. Once you have a bevel, it can't kick back. But I went in too fast. The reason I got that catch and kick back was I went into the wood too fast. So I've got to go in a little bit slower. Oh, I know. I'm going to show you one more thing. Diamond hone, right before this hopefully is going to be my last cut. I'm just going to take it and I'm just going to touch up the edge. Look, hopefully I have just a really nice sharp edge. I'm going to go in a little bit slower now. I'm going to try to prevent that kickback and go in a little bit slower. I'm going to move my tool rest over a little bit closer. All right. Go in a little bit slower. Let the tool just kind of sit there for a minute. Now I've got a bevel. Now I can go in. Can the camera kind of see that? Can we go to the tailstock camera? Maybe. I've got a little bit of a rim right. Are we on it? Oh, okay. Oh, I'm seeing a different one. Okay. Right here, I don't want to leave that because that little rim right there is going to catch my tool. So I'm just going to get rid of that. All right. That feels pretty good. I'll pass this around in just a minute. We're now going to go to the half round. I'm going to oil this up. I'm going to finish this third of the wood, and then I'm never going to come back to it. Because once I get down here to the bottom, this is not going to be round up here at the rim. This is a half round. This is D-Way's half round negative rake. I really like their tools. Again, there's a lot of good tool people out there. The gouges I was just using were Glenn Lucas's gouges. This is D-Way's. The bottom bowl gouge is Doug Thompson's. There's a lot of good tool makers out there. This is an unsupported cut. Let's see if I can show you this. It's going to be on the tool rest on this lower edge, but I'm cutting up here. It's going to want to slam down. So I'm holding it. I have to hold this tool up a little bit because it's unsupported where the cutting edge is touching the wood. I'm going to put one hand out here. It just helps with the vibration. No pressure at all into the wood. I'm just touching the wood. You're just getting these real fine shavings. That's good enough, all right. Now I'm going to go to the 5/8, which has got a blunter angle on it. And again, I'll pass both these tools around here in just a minute. And I'm going to go from about here down to about here. How much wood have I got down there in the bottom? I got 3/4 of an inch, so I got quite a bit of wood in the bottom. I like to check what I call parallelism to see if my wall thickness, so I can feel I'm getting thicker down here. You can't tell thickness, but you can tell if they're parallel. All right, another cut. That might be it. Okay, I didn't get rid of the knot. I got rid of part of it. Sorry about that. If I was at home, I would take thin super glue and madrone dust, and I would fill this with thin super glue and just kind of like a filling, like a tooth filling. That knot is loose. We don't have any super glue here, do we? By chance? Anybody got any super glue? I didn't think to bring any super glue. Normally, I wouldn't demonstrate on a bowl with a knot in it. I apologize for that. All right, I'm done with these two gouges. So here's the 5/8 and the 1/2 inch. The thing to notice is the different bevel angle here on the front of the tool. This is blunter. And when I pass around the bottom bow gouge, you'll see it's even blunter yet. That's all right. Don't worry about it, Richard. Like I said, I guess I won't be able to put Richard Raffin's name on it. All right. From the outside, this piece of wood looked like it was flawless, right? Then you get it at the inside, and there's a dead knot. That's part of life. Okay, same thing. I've got the tool up at about 45 degrees. No pressure on the wood. Just touching the wood. All I want to do is take off any high spots. Hear how quiet this cut is? No pressure into the wood. You can hear that knot. Okay. Okay, that's pretty good. No tear. Again, I would have another light right here so I could see into this really well. This bowl is small enough. I can just, okay, I've been cutting, here's the inside the bowl. I've been cutting above center on the first two deals because if I get a catch, my tool would kick out of the wood. If I was turning below center and I get a catch, it would shove your tool into the wood. So I've been cutting a little bit above center. So now I'm on the bottom, I got to cut at center. So I had to lower my tool rest. So now I'm going to go to the bottom bowl gouge. Again, this is the Doug Thompson's. I really like this gouge. It's got a nice round shape in the bottom of it, so I can use any part of it. My good friend Dave Schweitzer has what he calls a bottom feeder, but it's his regular gouge with a blunter angle on it, but it's got more of a V shape. This one's, I just like this one better. Personal choices, you know. Again, very, very blunt angle here. So I'll pass this around when I get done with it. Again, you can hear the crusty part is real brittle. This, I'll make a criticism here of Powermatic. This is kind of a poor way with just a bolt going into the tool post. It doesn't lock it down well. Both Robust and One Way have a better locking system. What happened here, I thought I had this tight and the tool rest moved. And that's because the way that this just one bolt going into the post. So I have this tool right here in my side, and I'm just moving my whole body. And this lathe is just a little bit low for me. My lathes are at 47.5 inches. You start with your elbow like right here. That should be the height of your spindle. So when we have Trent Bosch come up to the Oregon Symposium, we jack his lathe up 6 inches. We do. We have the blocks. We keep them year to year. The advantage of this really blunt angle on here is I can ride the bevel as I go across the bottom. As you get to center, you have to slow down because you have the same RPM, but you have different foot speed. So you have to go slower at center with your tool feed. Does that make sense? Everybody follow that? So as you get to center, you got to slow down. If you go too fast, you break out that center, and sometimes that's not a good thing. Okay, this is what Dave Ellsworth calls sweep. You can't see the profile. Take your hand and go really fast, and I can see I need to start my cut right there. So. Slowing down, going really slow now. I'm taking almost a 1/4 inch of wood off. That's too much wood for this cut. All right, let's see how much wood I got before I make this into a funnel. Okay, we got about a 1/2 inch, which is just about right, all right? Just about right. You want to leave a little bit more wood in the bottom for weight purposes. And the question is, how thick do I leave my bowl? Most of my bowls, like I said, the rim here is about a 1/2 inch. The walls are about 5 or 3/8, and then the bottom is about 1/2 inch, 5/8. When you pick up a bowl, it should feel like what it looks like. If you leave a bowl too thick, when you pick it up, it'll feel too heavy. Or if you get it too thin and pick it up, it's too light. So I don't know how to explain it, except it should feel like what it looks like. Here's the bottom bowl gouge. Notice how blunt this bevel is. I have to raise my tool rest here just a little bit now. Okay, I'm going to hit half round again. At bottom, I have to be flat. When you're using a scraper, the handle has to be equal to or higher than the cutting edge. If you have it like this, you can get a really good, exciting catch. Again, no pressure into the wood. I just want to take the high spots off. And as I get away from center, I can tip it up. Shouldn't take much. That looks good, all right. I don't need to pass this around. Everybody knows what a negative rake looks like. If you want, you can come up afterwards. Power sanding. All right. This is my favorite drill for power sanding. Most everybody now uses Velcro. I bought this system 25, 30 years ago. Comes out of Korea. I still use it, works fine. Turn your speed down, From center down to about 7 o'clock, center to 7 o'clock. Okay. And where you're going to have your tear out here is on the end grain. And I'm just, again, it's really nice to have a light right here. So I've got some tool marks right here. I'm going to switch over. This is a 3-inch mandrel. I'm going to switch over to a 4-inch sanding disc with called foam edge, so it's loose. And I'm just going to come in here. I can see some tool marks right here. If you have it one place, go 180 degrees and look 180 degrees. And then the gunk builds up. This is just belt cleaner. Okay, that was 80 grit. I'm going to go to 100 grit. Glenn Lucas starts sanding with 80 grit. You know, I go do demos and some people say, I start sanding with 220. That's really foolish because you get up to 320, then you see all your tear out, and you got to go back and start over. How many people here have got to see Glenn Lucas turn? He could turn 4 bowls to my 1. I mean, he's really good. Have you guys seen pictures of his shop? I have a really nice shop, right? His is like really nice. He's over there he's about 100 miles south of Dublin. If he does classes year round, well, in the winter he's processing wood mostly. But if you want to take a good bowl class, go to Dublin and go about 100 miles south down to County Carlow. And I think he's probably the best bowl teacher out there today. I mean, Raffin's down in Australia. He's quit traveling. He's had some heart issues. So for him to travel is really expensive for health insurance. So I'm not going to waste a lot of time sanding here. So one day this guy dies and he goes up to heaven and he meets St. Peter's at the gate. And St. Peter says to the guy, "And what have you done that I should let you into the gates of heaven?" And the guy thinks for a minute and he says, "Well, one day I was driving across South Dakota and I came upon this gang of bikers. And they had this gal down on the ground and they were just beating her up, something terrible. I just couldn't have it. As I got out of my car, I went over, I kicked over all their motorcycles, walked up to the biggest, meanest one of them, hit him right between the eyes, knocked him down, said, 'You leave this girl alone or you'll have to deal with me.' St. Peter looks at the guy and says, 'Wow, that's pretty impressive. When did that happen?' Guy looked at his wristwatch, said, 'About 2 minutes ago.' Okay, there's aluminum oxide, silicon carbide. Any questions on sanding or using the half round or scrapers or? Yes, great question. Does the sandpaper load up? And it does load up a lot quicker. You can see here it loads up pretty quick. But I use a wire brush. You can actually clean this out. This is high quality sandpaper, and I can use it a second time. The trade-off is you do use the sandpaper up quicker, but it's more efficient. And so there's a trade-off. It's a lot quicker sanding. But you do use a little bit more sandpaper, but I trade my time for, And again, I'm sanding both three times, three directions. That should about do it. All right, I'm going to oil it up and flip it around and do the bottom. So this guy dies and they're having the wake for him. And the priest decides to go to the wake. And he goes to the wake and the widow's there and he goes up to the widow and gives the widow condolences and she says, "Thank you, Father. Thanks for coming to the wake. Appreciate it." And the father, he goes, "Did your husband have any last requests?" And the wife thinks a minute. She goes, "Yeah, he did have a last request." And the priest says, "Well, what was the last request?" She says, "Well, he did ask me to put the gun down." Cops have a different sense of humor. Oops. So here's an interesting thing. This is 1.25 inches, right? This lathe, trust me, it is. My lathe at home is 1.25 inches. This faceplate was made by Howard Bohr, fits my 1.25 lathe at home. I was going up to Rocky Mountain to demo maybe 10 years ago, maybe a little longer. The great demo, a great symposium, the Rocky Mountain Symposium in August, September. It's my favorite regional symposium. A lot of great wood turners up there, Trant's up there, Kurt Theobald, Dave Nittman used to be there, Dave Ellsworth used to be there. A lot of my friends are dropping dead. Anyway, great symposium. Anyway, so I'm going up there and I said, "What am I demoing on?" And they said, "You're demoing on a Powermatic, 1.25 inches. I'm turning my speed down. So what I've got here, this is a stronghold chuck. All of them have, and then there's metal plates on here. Well, trust me, you can come up and look later. And they come with the rubber buttons that you can screw in here. Throw those away, put on these wood jaws. It's a much better system because that's holding on 8 points. Now I'm holding on 360 degrees roughly. So anyway, I'm going up there. So I take this faceplate up that I just used up there. It doesn't fit Powermatic's 1.25 inches. All right. So I come home. I go down to Howard. He modifies my faceplate so it fits my lathe and it fits Powermatic's 1.25 inches. Good, I'm good. A couple months later, I'm going up to Bremerton to demo. I said, "What am I teaching on?" And they said, "You're teaching on a Nova DVR 1.25 inches. I go, "Okay." So I take this faceplate. I encourage you to bring up the tailstock. I'm not going to put it back on. It's in my way. Actually, I'll put it back on. What the hell? It's safer. At home on my bowl lathe, I don't have a tailstock, so I can't even bring it up. I don't have it. Anyway, so I go up to Bremerton, take this faceplate that fits Powermatic, fits my lathe at home. It doesn't fit Nova DVR, 1.25 inches. All right, I'm going to bring this up just to hold this in. At home, my tool rest is round. I put it right up against, it can't come out of the chuck. It's much safer though. Oh, this could be, let's see if we can. Okay, this will just keep it from coming out. I don't need much pressure, just a little bit. All right. So it doesn't fit Nova DVR. I bring it home, Howard modifies it. It now fits my lathe, Powermatic 1.25" Nova DVR 1.25". 5 years ago, a week before COVID, I bought a robust lathe. I've got 2 one-ways, and I needed another lathe, so I bought a robust 1.25". This faceplate doesn't fit robust 1.25". I'm somewhere along the line here, I'm missing something. All right. It is safer. So here's where arrogance will get you. I was down at the coast at Coos Bay or somewhere down there about 20 years ago doing this exact demo, and it was on a spindle lathe like this, and I said, at home I don't have it. I didn't bring up the tailstock. I said, but you should. And I'm turning, I get a catch, I throw the bowl off, it lands on the cement behind me and breaks. So bring the tailstock up for most of the work. It's just safer. I've turned my speed down. You can't think about this diameter, you have to think about this diameter up here. I'm going to go back to my 3/8 bowl gouge. You could go straight in like this. You're going straight into end grain that way. I much prefer to nibble it off going into the flat grain. Again, the tool rest moved. This is a negative for, all lathes have negatives, all of them. That just happens to be a negative of Powermatic. Much easier to cut into flat grain than to go into end grain. Now I got to go into end grain. I just want to get, so you can see my screw holes. That's why I use short screws. Those screw holes will go away hopefully. Okay. Now you don't want to leave the bottom of your roll flat. It won't sit good on the table. A little bit of concavity. I'm just going to put a small concavity in this. So same cuts as I did on the inside the bowl, just a little shallower. I'm going to kick the speed up again a little bit more. I was at 430. I'm going to go up a little bit, speed up a little bit. On the bevel, tip my handle into the wood. I need a little straight edge. I got my straight edge here. Make sure I got a little bit of a concavity. Okay. On the bevel, I'm going to slow down my feet of rate going into the wood. Okay. I'm going to get rid of the tailstock now. Don't leave this in here, you'll get wood turner's elbow. I got the tool rest a little bit high. I got to lower the tool rest just a hair. Okay. This is where you can really get a catch. This is the fun part. I'm going to get rid of this. Okay, this guy's wife dies, and he calls the funeral home and says, you got to come pick the missus up. She's dead. The funeral home guy goes, what's your address? And the guy says, 310 Eucalyptus. Funeral home guy goes, how do you spell that? The guy thinks for a minute. He says, how about I drag her over to Oak? You pick her up there. You know, I got really lucky. I love police work. I work mostly night shift. That's why I dealt with methamphetamine. Meth addicts stay awake at night. Heroin people go to sleep at night, so I didn't deal much with heroin addicts. Okay, we're done with the gouge, oil. I want my rim to be flat. My rim is not flat. I'm just going to use my little less than 90 tool, shave off a little bit of wood here. There was parts of police work that were pretty tough. I mean, I had to go to a homicide of a 9-year-old girl, you know. That's a tough part of the job. But what other job do they give you a gun and a car and tell you to drive fast? And if you have to shoot somebody, that's okay once in a while. I got lucky, you know, I didn't have to shoot anybody. My partner in the next district over had to shoot 3 different people in his career. By the time he shot the 3rd one, he had to get off the road. It was too tough. What they don't cover in the newspapers is how tough it is on the officer when they get involved in a shooting. It's really hard on the officer. You know, you want to shoot the bad guy. But it's tough on the officer. And I'm glad I wasn't working when they had all the riots downtown. That's no fun. Some of the people, they worked 90 straight days, had people throwing bottles at them and rockets at them. And no fun. All right, so I forgot to talk what I was doing. This is the half round, negative rake half round. Just held it in there, real light. And I can still see my screw marks a little bit. I'm gonna take a little bit more wood off, get rid of the screw mark. One night we were going after this federal fugitive, Tommy Lewis. I gotta think of his last name now. He was gonna do 25 years. He was a big meth cook. And earlier in the day, he had gotten away from Clackamas County. And high-speed chase, got away from them. And I was doing surveillance on his second apartment, and I saw him come out. And he had a big duffel bag, and I really wanted into that duffel bag because I was pretty sure it was full of meth and guns and money and all the good stuff. And he was getting into a big 4x4. And so I was calling in lots of cover because Tommy didn't really want to do 25 years in the federal pen. It was against his religion. And he takes off, and as he pulls out onto 162nd, I pull behind him and I have more cars behind me. And I told my crew, the guys behind me, I said, I'm gonna turn the speed down a little bit here. When we get to Sandy, I'm going to pull in front of him, block him in from the front. You guys block him in from the back, and we'll stop the chase. Tommy disagreed with my plan of action. He didn't really think that was appropriate. And so we got to Sandy. He didn't slow down for the red light, of course. He just turned and went east on Sandy. And so I was right in position. I was going to reach for my light here. I've got a little bit of tear out right here, but I'm not going to worry about it. But I was right beside him. And everybody here know what a pit maneuver is? A pit's when you can touch their rear panel and you can knock them off the road. And if you do it right, neither vehicle gets any damage. And so what I didn't think about was Tommy was driving a big SUV with big mud grabber tires sitting up high. And I didn't think about the physics of it at the time. And so I went and I pitted him, and his SUV pulls right in front of you, and it should spin out and stop, right? Except the tires grabbed, and the SUV started rolling. And I thought I'd killed Tommy. I'm calling for a Code 3 ambulance. SUV is just rolling violently, and the satchels coming out with dope and money and guns are flying all over Sandy. And it comes to rest on its top. And I can't believe it, but Tommy had put his seatbelt on. He's hanging upside down in the SUV, and we go up there. I've been dealing with him for 20 years. I mean, not that he was a repeat offender, but he was. And he's hanging upside down in there, and he looks over at me, and he said, Dale, you didn't have to do that. And I said, Tommy, you could have stopped. You know, if you're doing 25 years, that's a lot of time in the federal pen. All right, I'm done. Any questions on bull turning?